वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा आदिपूज्यं गणाध्यक्षं उमापुत्रं विनायकम् आदिपूज्यं गणाध्यक्षम् उमापुत्रं विनायकं मङ्गलं परमं रूपं श्रीगणेशं नमाम्यहम् मङ्गलं परमं रूपं श्रीगणेशं नमाम्यहम्। जय गणेश गणनाथ दया निधि सकल विघ्न कर दूर हमारे। जय गणेश गणनाथ दया निधि सकल विघ्न कर दूर हमारे। जय गणेश गणनाथ तुम्हारे तिसके पूरन कारज सारे। प्रथम धरे जो ध्यान तुम्हारे तिसके पूरन कारज सारे। लंबोदर गज वदन मनोहर लंबोदर गज वदन मनोहर कर त्रिशूल परशुवरधारी। तेरी युग बीते ना आई मिलन की युग बीते ना आई मिलन की पूर्णमासी श्याम नाथ अखिया प्यासी द्वार दया का जब तू खोले पंचम स्वर में गूंगा बोले द्वार दया का जब तू खोले पंचम स्वर में गूंगा बोले अंधा देखे लंगड़ा चलकर अंधा देखे पहुंचे काशी रे दर्शन दो घनश्याम नाथ पानी पीकर प्यास बुझाओ नैनन को कैसे समझाओ पानी पीकर प्यास बुझाओ नैनन को कैसे समझाओ आँख में छोड़ी छोड़ो अब तो आँख में छोड़ी छोड़ो अब तो मन की बासी दर्शन दो घनश्याम नाथ अखिया प्यासी दर्शन दो घनश्याम नाथ अखिया प्यासी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन धारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन धारी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन धारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी करुणा सागर कृष्ण मुरारी करुणा सागर कृष्ण मुरारी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन धारी मुरलीधर गोवर्धन शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी शंख चक्र पीतांबर धारी करुणा सागर कृष्ण मुरारी करुणा सागर कृष्ण मुरारी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी राधा कृष्णा कुंज विहारी
This
morning for our satsang, I wanted to discuss one of my favorite terms in the Hindu tradition. This is Darshan. We sang the bhajan Darshan do ghana shama nath mori. It is very central to our tradition, and it is one of those words that simply cannot be translated into English, because if you think about it, how would you translate darshan? There is no single English equivalent for this word darshan. You can't say darshan means to see, because it is much more than seeing. So it's really an untranslatable Hindu term, and yet it is so central to our tradition. As you know, even today, but traditionally, when we visited our temples, we would not say, I am going for worship. We would say, I am going for darshan. I'm going to the temple for darshan. So it's very central as a motive for visiting a temple, or even to visit a sadhu, a guru, a santa will say, I'm going for darshan. Or even to see the Ganga, we say Ganga darshan. I'm going for Ganga darshan. So yes, to the temple, but also to see the guru, the teacher, the river, and so on. So why is this so central to our understanding of our tradition? So let me begin, with the word itself, darshan. So it comes from the Sanskrit root drish, which means to see. So it's the same root that gives us to, pashyati, also comes from drish, which means, this is the verbal root, drish, to see. So darshan, literally we may say, although I say it's not simply seeing, but literally translated, it's seeing. But why seeing is not adequate is that we don't use darshan to describe every act of seeing. If you witnessed someone hurting another person, for example, you saw it, you don't describe, you wouldn't say, I had darshan of this person, hurting the other. It's not simply inappropriate. So it's not simply seeing, even though it comes from the root to see. So, you might say a new mall is constructed, a new outlet mall is constructed in Egan, you're going to see the outlet mall. But while they have become very important in our lives, perhaps some will say, the malls are the new temples. Everybody goes on Sundays now. We don't normally speak of, I'm not going to the outlet mall in Egan for darshan of the mall. So we use the term in a very special sense in our Hindu tradition. We may say that we use it to describe seeing, the seeing of that which we regard as sacred. To get closer to the meaning of darshan, we have to add the word sacred before seeing, sacred seeing, or seeing of that which we regard as sacred, or that which we see with some measure of reverence. It's reverential seeing, seeing with reverence, seeing of that which is sacred. So it is used, as I said, we use it to describe going to the temple, going to visit a guru, going to see a river or some other tirtha or sthana that we regard as sacred. But in a more specific sense, we use the word when we come to visit our temples and to have darshan of the murti. That's perhaps the most commonly used context for the term. We come to see the murti in the in the mandir, in the sanctum sanctorum. We describe that experience as, we regard it as a religious act. Just coming, standing before the murti, looking at the murti, that itself becomes a form of puja. You don't have to do anything else. You come and stand and you see, and that seeing is a religious experience. We feel that we have performed and done something with religious experience. So what is it that makes the act of seeing a religious experience? In the case of the murti, because as we have all agreed, is much more than a physical seeing. So I give you an example, like Ned and others here conduct tours in the temple. Students come, visitors come, guests come. We take them to see the murtis. They also stand and look at the murtis. But I would be hesitant. I'm not saying that, I'm not ruling out the possibility. But even though they are seeing the murtis, I wouldn't describe their seeing as an act of darshan. They are just seeing a physical rupa, a form. They're seeing an interesting form. You doing the tour guide, you may be having darshan. So you're bringing, darshan means you're bringing something to that act of seeing, which a visitor merely seeing does not bring. You have a certain lens, let's put it. You're seeing the murti through a certain lens. But I remember, I'm not saying, I have friends who are not Hindus and who have gone to Hindu temples, and they have described the experience, which I would say came very close to darshan. Doesn't mean that you have to be a Hindu to have darshan. It depends on what you bring to that seeing. And anyone can bring that to his or her seeing. But physical seeing becomes darshan when the object that we see, in this case the murti, awakens in us a consciousness of divinity, a consciousness of God. That, I'll put it in this way. Seeing becomes darshan when what we see awakens in us the sense or the experience that God is here now. That the divine is present here and now, both words, in space and time, here and now, God is present. There's an immediacy of divine presence which is there in the act of darshan. It's interesting, it's a paradoxical thing, because sometimes we go for darshan, we approach the murtis, we go to see, I'm going for darshan, and then when you stand before the murti, we close our eyes. When we see, we close our eyes, because the scene has had some impact on us that inspires us now to close the eyes and to experience. We experience the divine there, but in a sense, we're also experiencing divine within, signaled by the we spontaneously close the eyes after we stand in the presence of the murti to more fully experience this, what I'm calling God here and God now, space and time. So this is what darshan does for us. And murtis are very important. Murtis are not the only objects of darshan, as I say. It can be person. If a person does that for you, then that's darshan. If the sun does that for you, that's darshan. Whatever awakens you to the sense of divine reality here and now, that seeing is darshan. But darshan is, I would describe it as mutual seeing. It's a two-way process, in the sense that I see, but I think also present and integral to the experience of darshan is the dimension also that I am seeing. I see and I am seen. I stand in the presence of the divine. I am aware of the divine, but I am also enveloped in the divine. The divine also sees me, of course, continuously. It's a reminder that I see, but I am never outside of divine reality. I'm never outside of divine awareness. So in darshan, I am seen, I see, but important also is that I am seen. Always seen by divinity. That the chakshu, the eyes of the divine are upon me. And this is, in our ceremony, I'll say a brief word about it in a moment. But as you know, in the prana pratishta ceremony that we have for our murtis when they become installed in our temple, the last act is the act of opening the eyes of the murti. You have to have the shilpi there to open the eyes of the murti. And opening the eyes of the murti is a signal, I am seen. I am within, God's eyes are upon me. Even must my eyes behold the divine. And that's a very significant moment. And it's also why, you see it perhaps more prominently in some murtis depending on the tradition. But most of our murtis, the eyes are very prominent for this experience of darshan, to see and to be seen. The eyes of the murti are very significant in the sculpture of the murti. As you know, darshan is also used in the context of our tradition to describe the different philosophical or religious systems within the Hindu range of traditions. So we speak of Patanjali's Yoga Darshan, or Sankhya Darshan, Vaisheshika Darshan. So we use the word darshan for particular sampradayas, particular traditions. We speak of our philosophical or theological traditions as traditions of darshan. And I think there are two, it's a very interesting use. We speak of Vedanta darshan, Advaita darshan, Vishishta Advaita darshan, Dvaita darshan, and so on. There are at least two reasons or two ways in which we can read the meaning of darshan when it's used in relation to a theological or philosophical system. One here is that we say, Vedanta darshan, Advaita darshan means we can think of darshan as meaning a worldview. It's a certain view, a certain understanding of the nature of reality, a certain interpretation of the meaning of life. So darshan there means worldview. But darshan, I think, when it is used in relation to such ways of thinking or such philosophical systems, yoga darshan, we may also understand darshan to be a marga or a path, whether it's yoga or Vedanta, that helps us to attain darshan. It is the yoga way of achieving darshan, in this case darshan, what you consider to be ultimate reality. Yoga has an understanding of what is ultimate. Advaita has an understanding of what is ultimate. But yoga darshan is a yoga way of achieving the experience of that, or however you describe it, of that which you regard as ultimate. It awakens the path. So the first word yoga or Vedanta describes the path, and the goal here, you can think of darshan as the goal to darshan, the yoga goal to this experience of divinity, or this awakening to this divinity. So here we see that darshan refers to a way of understanding the world, a world view. Think of it in this way. I gave the example of going to, say, have darshan of the Himalayan mountains. So think of this, a group of people, let's say we take a group to see the Himalayan mountains. And among this group, within this group we have a geologist who goes. And the geologist goes to the Himalayan, and the geologist is very interested in the seismic history of these mountains. He looks there, and his main or her main focus is on how did these mountains form? What were the cataclysmic, seismic activity thousands and thousands of years ago that gave rise to these mountains? And then in this group also there is a mountain climber. And the mountain climber immediately, which route is best for me to get to the top there? He's thinking, how would I scale this scale? Not interested in seismic activities, but I want to get to the top. I want to conquer this mountain. That's the language that they use, not we use. They use conquest. We never speak of the conquest of nature. Which is the best route? Which would be the best face of this mountain for me to climb, to get to the summit, to get to the peak? And of course, in that group also, there is a Hindu. When she sees the mountain, she puts her hands together and bows her head and says, it is Shivalaya. This is the abode of Shiva. You may think, the first two are very practical and very rational, and the Hindu who puts his or her hands together and looks at the mountain with reverence is being superstitious. But I think that would be a very short-sighted way of understanding that response to the mountain, because the Hindu is seeing something more than mountain. This is the Hindus having an experience of darshan and seeing something sacred. There's something sacred about the mountain. There's something more than mountain. There's something more than river. In nature, nature is the face of something that behind which there is something more profound. There's a transcendent reality that is present there also, that is communicated by saying that the mountain is the abode of Shiva. It doesn't have to be literally you'll find Shiva living in the mountain, but it's articulated in saying this is the abode of Shiva, or the Ganga is the goddess, or the abode of the goddess. So the way in which you see reality, the way in which you see a single object of reality, or reality as a whole, depends on what lens you're looking at that reality. And it doesn't mean that if you are a geologist, you cannot also say Shivalaya. You can have both. Both they're not incompatible. You can be scientifically curious, but you can also know there's a mystery there. And when in the Hindu tradition, when we want to signify this, when we want to signify that reality is more than we see, that reality is more than we see with our eyes, and more than we can touch, more than we can taste, more than we can hear, more than we can smell. This is basically that there's a ground, there's a deeper ground that sustains this reality. There's a ground, there's an immanent ground that pervades everything, sustains everything. We do something in our language. We call the sun Surya. But when we want to identify the transcendent ground that is present in the sun, we say Devata. When in Darshan has its own language. When I see the sun, and the sun awakens in me a sense of the transcendent reality, I name it Surya Devata or Chandrama Devata. I look at the full moon. When I see the full moon, I know what it is. It's planet it's reflecting the light of the sun. I can understand all of that, but doesn't fully explain it. Why the moon? Why the light of the moon in the night, the soft light? Why this particular order to the universe? You see, sometimes I think we make a mistake in thinking that if we explain how something works, we have explained it away. Explaining how something works is only part of the explanation of the reality of anything. Explain how something works is an understanding of causal connectedness. So I can say that the sun is a mass of gas. Speak of all of the nuclear explosions that keep the light of the sun. So I've given one kind of explanation for it. It doesn't explain what the sun is. It's not a complete explanation of what of its reality. But when I am pointing to when I'm signifying that I see something more, and this is why the sun has always been a very special focus of Hindu worship. Surya Namaskar, Sandhya, in the light of the dawn. And that's because it lifted us to that transcendent mystery that is present all the time in and with us, which we signified, by adding the word devata to any natural phenomena. We added that. So not simply Surya, but Surya Devata, Chandrama Devata, Prithvi Devata. Think of it. Vayu Devata, the wind. So we approach. Darshan, for me, brings back the sacred to everyday life. It adds back the sacred to life every day. It saves us from the routinization of life. And we have all of these mantras. If we take seriously, we will see how they are meant to work. Like it's a beautiful mantra also for just looking at your hands, Darshan. Huh? Yeah, Kara Darshan. You can look at your darshan of your arms. And you see Lakshmi, Saraswati, Govinda, Prabhate Kara Darshanam. I look at my hands. If you're not anywhere else, you're not close to any temple, just look at your hands. Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, Karamule Saraswati, Karamadhe Govinda, Prabhate Kara Darshanam. And Samudre Vasane Devi, Parvatasthana Mandite, Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam, Padasparsha Shamasva. To even touch the earth, Prithvi. In the morning, before you touch the earth, you ask Shama, forgive me for placing my feet on you. It says the earth is sanctified, the earth is sacred, and so you awaken with that reverential. Religion is nothing if it doesn't awaken in us reverence for life. It is nothing. I would say that the primary, if you ask me, what is the primary Hindu emotion? We can talk of religious life at different levels, emotional level, intellectual. If you ask me, what is the primary Hindu disposition to life? I would say it is reverence. It is reverence for life. That's why because it's the heart of how we greet each other. I know you all know Namaskar, Namaste. It's reverence. The reverence for, you can't be a Hindu without, if you take that away, the reverence for life, you have taken away what it means to be Hindu. I will write something and I will say something. I don't like to speak politically, but a few days ago, the Attorney General of the United States was supposed to give a speech. And in that speech, he said, now we are going to clean our cities of the filth. He described human beings as filth. Doesn't matter to me what you think about people, whether you want to get rid of them or not. If you think that they're here illegal and you want to get rid of them, maybe you could make your arguments legally. But to describe a human being as filth, it is a violation of the sanctity of humanity. Even when we have to imprison people, whatever we have to do to them, every human being deserves to be revered. Every human being we have to have that reverence for human being. That reverence has to be articulated in the manner in which we speak, even of those we don't agree with. Otherwise, we are violating something about our tradition. So reverence for life, I would say, is the primary emotional disposition of what it means. And life here, as you know, and as in all of the illustrations, not only human life. Life in the Hindu tradition is much broader than humanity. The life of nature. Everything is sacred. So is a paradox of darshan is that to see well requires an understanding of the unseen. Darshan means to see plus. So, we see vyakta is what we see. But the consciousness of the avyakta, we see vyakta, but with the consciousness of avyakta. The manifest we see, but when we have in darshan, we see the manifest through the lens of the unmanifest. The seen and the unseen. This is where, this is how Isha Upanishad starts. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. So Idam Sarvam is what I am seeing. The first verse of Isha Upanishad is Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Idam Sarvam is this. Everything that I am seeing. Physically. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Isha Vasyam. So Idam Sarvam that I am seeing, what must I do? Isha Vasyam. See it in God. Or wrap it. See it as Vasyam. See it as clothed by the divine. Present in God. And whenever we see in the tradition, whenever we see rightly, that's how we see. Ishavasyam. Idam sarvam. Yat kinchit. So think you don't leave anything out. Yat kinchit jagat yam jagat. Whatever it is, don't exclude anything. Say I'm going to see God in this one and not in this one. Yat kinchit. Yat kinchit. The Rishi puts that there. Yat kinchit. Jagatyam. Whatever you see, don't exclude anything. Ishavasyam. Ishavasyam. Idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat. Tena tyaktena bhunjita. Unenjoy the world. Bhunjita. And this also comes to joy. Clothe the world in God and enjoy life. Because there's a joy in that also. Clothe the world in God. Sometimes, when I am teaching, and it's a very good question. I never thought of it very much until my students asked me one day, and since that first question, when I came to teach, I have always realized that I have to say more when I speak of darshan. Because once I gave a lecture in my early years of teaching here about darshan and its importance in the Hindu tradition, one of my students said, Professor Rambachan, what about the blind person? That's the kind of questions you get in the class. What about the blind person? Does it mean that if darshan is so important in this tradition, are you ruling all of these people who can't see? Can they not have this experience of darshan? And that's how it set me thinking. It was a very good question. So then, I had to come up with standing on my feet before the class. I had to come up with. Fortunately, I said, yes. It's an excellent question, and we have to think more about, what our tradition means for those who are differently abled. And I said, but we speak also of mantra darshan. Mantra darshan. And it's true. the mantras that we have, you think of them, they offer very vivid descriptions of the murtis. You think of a mantra, Shanta Akaram Bhujagashayana Vishnu, Padmanabham Suresham. If you can't see, you can visualize. Vishwadharam Gaganasanesham, Megavaranam, Subha, Lakshmi Kantam. So that, we have mantra darshan. So through mantra, you can also have darshan. So, antar. Antar darshan. Within oneself, one sees. It's a very powerful, very powerful form of darshan. I remember, that a few years ago I went to a lecture I went to give a lecture at a conference in England, in Birmingham. It was not a Hindu conference, it was a conference of people of different religious traditions. And sometimes, you go to a conference and you forget about it soon after. But there was one presenter at this conference who made me think very differently. And he was a blind scholar. He's a Christian scholar, Christian theologian, but he was blind. And he gave a talk at that lecture. And he was speaking particularly of the Christian text. But he pulled out every verse in the text that spoke negatively about blindness. That he used blindness as a synonym for ignorance. And he spoke of how painful it is to him every time that he goes to church and a pastor sitting there as a blind person in the pew, and blindness is negativized in the sermon. And he was asking, can we not find other examples to talk about ignorance and not equate it with blindness? I think everyone who heard this man speak and speak powerfully realized, that you have to think very differently about those verses in the text. That perhaps not intentionally, but in one way or another, I saw it very clearly that if you just equate, stupidity and ignorance and all of that with blindness, you're doing something that is very deeply hurting a blind person in that group. And I after that, and he said some really interesting things. And sometimes you realize, as a person who sees reality differently, a very different darshan, so them you learn the most. And then he went on in his lecture, he said, I know all of you are very familiar with the story of the 5 blind person and the elephant. But let me tell you, as a blind person, how I read that story. And he said, if you are a blind person and you're brought to an object and somebody asks you, what is that object? You will never touch one part of it. Because as a blind person, you know that you have to touch more than one part of it to know what it is. So a blind person would have gone all around that elephant. Would have never held on to the foot of the elephant and said it is a pillar. That's not how blind people experience the world. We know that we have to use all our senses. So that is he said, that's a reading of that story by people who have sight. Hear the voice of the blind. We'll never go to the elephant like that. We would have told you what it is. If you asked the blind person, what is this object, the blind person would have said it's an elephant. Because one blind person would walk all around and make sure he knew what that elephant is. So it's very beautiful, very challenging presentation. Sometimes in language we're not often conscious of the impact of our words, our examples on the other. On the other. And he helped me to see that very much. I want to close, there's so much to say, but I want to close with one observation. I don't know where this. Yes, I love to speak about darshan. As I said, I think it's. If you ask me how would I like to think of myself growing religiously, I would say that I want to transform my life so that every moment of my life becomes an experience of darshan. That's what it should be. I should live this life, with reverence for everyone, for everything, even for those who I disagree with, or those whose views I don't share. Minimally, I should have that attitude of reverence. But I think, it's very worth thinking. Look, when we want to make a murti in our temple fit for worship, we just don't bring a murti to the temple. We bring it here, and then we go through a long process. To make a murti fit for worship, we have to do prana pratishtha. We have to invoke prana, the life. We have to establish life in the murti. And then when we go through this whole ritual, extending over many days, and this is the eye-opening ceremony and everything, God makes God being available and accessible in this murti for our worship. Without that, we don't understand what is happening in our temple. God makes God's self accessible as an act of grace, as an act of love. The divine who is present everywhere. The mantras that are chanted, Dr. Sani, they're very beautiful. In one of the mantras, may you be present in this murti. As the wind becomes present when a fan is moved in the air. As fire that is present in the wood becomes present when it's rubbed together. May you become present in this murti. Sometimes the mantras are very, so for example, the wind is all here. You don't feel the wind right now. It's all here. There's wind, believe me. There's air, right? But if I bring a fan and move it, you experience it, right? So God is present everywhere. Like a fire is there in that wood. Heat is there. So you're making manifest. Not bringing something that doesn't exist there, but making present in a very special way that which is present everywhere. And that which doesn't cease to be present everywhere also. It's not that when we invoke God in the murti, God suddenly ceases to be present everywhere and is present only in the murti. No, it's not like that. But we have to do something special to make the divine present in this form for darshan. For darshan. Which is the form in which we don't have to do anything for the divine to be present. No ritual is required. Meditation. But what is the form in the which form or forms in the universe?
Parents.
Huh?
Parents.
Parents,
Yeah.
yes. Which forms or forms in the universe don't require pran pratishtha for divine presence?
Guru.
You're all going to special people.
Within each of us.
Every human being. Every human being. Doesn't require pran pratishtha.
Because prana is already there.
Prana is always already there. Right? So Bhagwan, it's Upanishad.
Yeah.
So kamayata. God desired. Bahusyam prajayeti. May I become many. Satapo tapyata, satapastaptva. Visualize creation. Idagum sarvam asrijata. Created everything. Yadidam kincha tatsrishtva. And having created, enter into everything. Tat yadidam kincha tatsrishtva. Tadeva anupravishata. And establish himself in everything. So, the murtis requires prana pratishtha is fine. But where our tradition is taking us is to see every form as murti. Because this is what it is. Every form is murti. Doesn't require any ritual. It requires vision. It requires seeing. And my final, and this is where you want to look at it, see how Tulsidas starts his Ramayana. Akara chari lakha chaurasi, jati jiva jalathala nabhavasi. He says, in this universe, I can't even count all the forms of life. Because life is everywhere. It's in the air, in the earth, in the depths of the ocean, he says, which we discovered that we're living deeper in the ocean than we thought. Siya Rama mai sab jagajani. But in every form of life, he calls God Siya Ram. The Tulsidas' beautiful name for Bhagavan is Siya Ram. That compound, Siya Ram. Siya Rama mai sab jagajani. But I know that in each one, and then he comes to the point of reverence. Karahu pranam, jora jugapal. And therefore he says, I bring my hands together to every life form. Darshan is noun. Darshan has to become verb. It is noun, we have to make it into a verb. It's something that we have to do. It's something that darshan has to become practice. It's to become both noun and verb. But sometimes you say, love has to become verb. Or darshan also, noun, but it has to become a verb. It has to be something that we. And how do you learn to, learn to make darshan a part of everyday life? By practicing to see. There's another way. You learn to ride a bike. How do you learn to ride a bike? You can't have a bike, then I'm going to learn to ride this bike. You have to get on it and ride. You have to start seeing. We have to start seeing. Start seeing. Okay, so tomorrow we might not see everyone. But is there some moment in the day when we can think of one person? And have darshan? When we breathe one time tomorrow, can we say Vayu Devata? Or gratitude? Because darshan also means to see the world with the eyes of darshan is also see it with eyes of gratitude. Reverence and gratitude. To look at the sun with darshan. One natural object, one human being. That's how we start to practice darshan. You said beautifully, parents, yes.
And being in Minnesota, we all are very fond of Surya Bhagavan.
Yes, Surya Bhagavan, yes. Even more than elsewhere, More than elsewhere. We're fond of, because we actually appreciate much more. We don't run from Surya Bhagavan. We're delighted when we see Surya Bhagavan. That's so true. When Arjuna has Vishwaroop Darshan, he sees everything in Krishna. When Devaki has Vishwaroop Darshan, she sees everything in her child. That's why it's called Darshan. Because we see the divine in everything. So this, Darshan is such a beautiful Hindu teaching, both as noun but as a way of being. And this is what I wanted to really share with you this morning. What darshan? This untranslatable word. So that's why it took me so many words to talk about that which can't be translated in any single word. But when you say it, this is what it means to also belong and be rooted in a particular tradition. When you say darshan to a Hindu, yes, it speaks beyond the sound. It speaks to a way of being, which someone can understand, but it requires patient explanation. So maybe one or two of you might have some thoughts to add to what I'm saying, or something that I can clarify. It's not only to question me, but to share your own thoughts as I spoke. Yes.
I would say it's all of the senses. Like I was meditating today, and I get sometimes the deities send me smells, and it's vibration always. But say sometimes I don't get too much audio, but some people do. Depends how you're wired. Yeah, but it is multi-sensory, I would say.
And that brings up, as I said, the idea of the one who's without sight also can also have darshan through.
More
Even
intense.
Huh?
Those who do not have the other senses,
Yes, yes.
the sound, touch, everything becomes much more,
Heightened.
yeah, it's heightened because we lose one of those senses.
Yeah.
one time I brought a new yoga student upstairs, had never been here, didn't know anything about anything, and I said, I'm going to meditate with Durga, you're welcome to meditate with me. And I said, how was it? She said, oh, she showed me her perfume.
Mm.
So this is somebody that doesn't know how to spell Hinduism, but had that experience.
Yeah. Very good. Ned, please.
Very beautiful. To have a meaningful darshan, let's say I'm having a darshan of Krishna, I really have to feel in my heart that what I'm looking at is Krishna.
Yes.
Is Krishna. All that Krishna represents. The entire cosmos is with that. So unless I feel that way, I really won't have a meaningful darshan.
I agree with you, Ned, and that's why I mean, that's another way to put it. It's bringing the heart to your seeing, and that's why I said, as I spoke about religious emotion, the emotion of reverence. So it's surely it's buddhi, this is an understanding. Why I say it's buddhi and it's also hridaya, heart. Because why understanding is also important, because if you think of it in that, there is a certain understanding of the nature of God that is necessary for this Hindu understanding of darshan. Now if you think, a very simple, if you think that God exists outside of this universe, you never have darshan. Darshan requires, theologically or philosophically, an understanding of God is present in everything. That's why if I can look at you, I can say, if I see the divine in you, I have darshan. But the divine has to be present in everything and not out there. We can't be speaking about divinity that is disconnected from the universe, separate spatially or temporally. In the Hindu tradition, that's important. God is always here and now, and everything is in the divine. You look at the teachings, Yo Mam Pashyati Sarvatra Gita, Yo Mam Pashyati Sarvatra. One who sees me everywhere, Sarvam Chamai Pashyati, and sees everything in me. Tasyaham na pranashyami, sachame na pranashyati. There is never separation. I'm never separate from the one who sees me in everything and everything in me. So that seeing in God in all and all in God, God in all and all in God, is the necessary philosophical or theological ground for darshan. But if you go to the idea of the distant God that occasionally interacts with the universe, which is present in some forms, some religious forms, then you would have a concept of a teaching of darshan. So it's grounded also in a certain understanding of the divine. Does that make?
Right. A related question to that would be to the Rambachan is that if I can imagine Krishna, like in my imagination, I really perhaps don't need a murti, right?
I mean, the fact is, temples and murtis are a very important part of our tradition, but we always have to also note that we don't see that they are a necessary part of our tradition. And we don't behave like that as Hindus say. You must, unless you go to the temple this time. It's beautiful to go to temples if you appreciate the temples, but we never have injunctions like that. And so I agree with you, because we have traditions in Hinduism. This is where Swami Dayananda Saraswati, the founder of the Arya Samaj and all of that, he was iconoclastic, and it says, back to the Vedas without murtis, and so that was his approach. My thought on this, Ned, is that many human beings, I would say as a whole, who say, I don't need to go to the temple, I don't need to go to the church, I don't need to see God in this murti form, end up not seeing God anyway. you know, you need particular forms. You need to start somewhere. You know, you need the discipline of learning to see the divine, at least in one form, and from there you can extend this. You know, someone might say, oh, I don't need to engage in any particular form of prayer. I'm always aware of God. Well, please be sure you're not deceiving yourself. You know, please be sure that, you know, because religion is about having sadhana. It's about practice. It's about practice also. Yeah. Not that I'm saying that's not your point, you know.
The good analogy I'm just trying to present here is, you know how you become from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent.
Yeah.
And then you go from the ultimate goal is, unconsciously competent. The four stages, I think part of any skill or faith development process. So maybe that's where this might.
Yeah. To get to that,
your journey lies.
Yeah, to get to that point, Vivekananda's guru used to say, yes, when you become a vast tree, you don't need a fence around you. But as long as you are growing, you better make sure that tree has a fence. Otherwise, it's not going to grow. Only after it has grown, you can move the fence. But when it is fragile, a good farmer would make sure there's a fence to protect it, to ensure that it grows. So, our practice is that fence. And it takes a long time to come to that spontaneous place that you just described.
The way we use the word darshan usually, am I correct in thinking that silence is an important part of it? That is to say that the murti, for example, externally is not speaking. Himalaya or Ganga or etc. are externally not speaking. Now suppose you have a sadhu, you may go to his darshan, but if the sadhu starts singing or giving a lecture, perhaps that experience might be described differently from darshan. It might be a lecture or talk or etc. Is that reasonable as to the use of the word darshan?
Well, I think it's a very beautiful thought, Anand. The relationship between how silence intensifies or enhances the experience of darshan. Because it's possible that you might then be focused or get distracted with the words and begin to conceptually analyze and miss the reality of presence. So I want to say yes to what you say, that darshan is facilitated in moments of silence. And that's why I think, most intense moments of darshan sometimes are when we are with nature, in the silence of nature, the birds singing, the sound of wind in the trees. So I think you're putting your finger on an important relationship between.
So, what that leads to then is that what distinguishes darshan is that it is an internal dialogue. It is a dialogue between the murti and me, but it is happening internally. And that is why it does not matter whether a person is blind or a person is deaf. It would matter if a person is brain dead.
Yes, I think I would agree with you. I mean, first of all, I would want to say that there's something profound in the connection between silence and darshan. And I want to agree also that darshan is happening. It's a certain primarily inward understanding, wisdom, experience that we then bring to bear outward. I want to say yes. I think both I would.
So it's kind of an attitude.
It's an attitude, and I would add, and I don't think what you're saying is contrary to what I'm about to say. But I think that when we are truly having the experience of darshan, or when we are truly establishing darshan, it will transform how we engage the external.
Yes.
Yes, it will transform, unless it will transform how I relate to you,
Yeah.
or how I engage in the world. You know, it's not an internal experience. It's not a spirituality that is then disconnected from the way in which I would engage the world in whatever roles I play, whatever I'm doing. The inward, finds a powerful outward expression. I want to say that.
So I mean, it's the same difference between karma and karma yoga, which is a matter of attitude, how you view it.
And karma yoga is the action that expresses itself.
Well, it is done with a certain
Attitude, yes. Karma yoga is defined.
It
It's
may
an
be the
attitude.
same task,
Yeah.
but one is karma, the other is karma yoga,
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
attitude is correct.
Yeah. But once you once you would say also, that, and I know you don't, I mean, I know you don't, you're not, that's not what you're saying, but as I said before, even as I would not want to describe, and if I witness someone who is hurting someone as a darshan, similarly, I would want, not, so some people, sometimes without carefully thinking, so we sometimes say, not that you are saying that, anything becomes karma yoga if you have the right attitude. But I think it's a little more than that. I think you have to choose certain kinds of
So it's
actions.
doing the right karma.
Yeah, you have to, yes, exactly. This is what I want to say. This is what I want to say also, yes, exactly. It also has to be the right karma. It's not only right attitude, but also right action.
Right.
It has to be the right action also.
Is there a need to have mental preparation? And the reason why I'm saying that is that people go to the Tirupati temple. You get to see God for milliseconds,
Analogy.
but they feel an experience that sort of makes them connect with divinity.
I don't think, I think, yeah, and I don't think that darshan necessarily has anything specific about time frame. It doesn't require long seeing, and you're quite right. And that even a brief seeing, but because of all that they are bringing to that brief experience, it has a deep inward significance. And it's also because these, Hindus, certain sensibilities have been cultivated over a long period of time of being Hindu and what it means to go to the temple and to see the murti. You bring in a whole history. I mean, if you are serious as a Hindu, we carry within us centuries of tradition, almost that have disposed us to respond to certain things in certain kinds of ways. So even though we see, someone looking, so quickly you went to the temple and you left, but that's not the point. It's centuries of learning to look in a particular way of reality. And so, it's not for an outsider to question the person who's gone to Tirupati for, stands in the line quickly. As long as it's meaningful to that person, so be it. So be it.
Anna?
Yeah,
To me,
this one.
okay, going to the church, many times people say, I was there, I had dialogue with Jesus, or I went there, I talked to Jesus. Sometimes there is a cross, sometimes there is a statue of Jesus. Sometimes it is just the atmosphere that makes people spiritual. They go, they sit quietly, and they come out feeling really good about whatever their experience is. Isn't it also like a little bit like darshan?
I think some elements of darshan are present in the sense, if someone looks at crucifix as a symbol, and it awakens in him or her a sense of divinity, a divine presence. It's working in a similar way to darshan, or as you mentioned, the fragrance. That's why in our puja, the Hindu puja is a very sensual experience. We smell, we taste, we hear, we feel. It engages us totally. So, and all of these can have religious implications in the way that which you have described. Yeah, Kamlesh Shashi was going to say.
Well, I think when the temple is consecrated and Prana Pratishtha is done,
Yeah.
that temple comes to life. We call it in Sanskrit Jagruta. And whether somebody is able to see or not,
Feel it.
the positive vibrations are emanated from that murtis which are alive. So looking at it slightly differently than what you looked at. Even if somebody is alive, when you go to the Guru Darshan, you go to take a darshan of the people who are enlightened. Looking at them, being in their company, you're able to feel those positive vibrations as well. What is fascinating part about it, Anand, is even if you do not know the person before, even if you have never met him before, but just walking in a particular room where the enlightened person is, you're able to feel those vibrations positively. If you read the book by Professor S.S. Cohen, the first time he walked in the room where Raman Maharshi was standing, the moment he walked in the room, he was able to feel a totally different feeling even though he had never met it. So the positive feelings, positive impressions, positive vibrations are always emanated from the enlightened individual and in our temple, Jagrut temple, murtis. For example, if you walk into a garden filled with fragrant flowers, whether you want to take that fragrance with you or not, Anand, you don't have any choice but to have it on your clothes, on your body, in your face, and in your nostrils. So when you are in a company of the enlightened individual, a Jagrut temple, whether you can see, whether you can hear, you can smell, that positive impression is going to go with you. So I just look at it slightly differently. So.
A beautiful example.
Pardon me? Yeah, maybe last point.
So I'm just trying to build on that church experience, you know. I think the way I was kind of trying to understand is anything you do which bring the sattvic tendencies in your mind, you know, whether church going, celebrating versus tamasic, you know, practices. That's probably is the path to the darshan. That's probably I think one way of explaining it and why.
As my last, I think all of this, thank you for all of your comments, and I think, you know, that we have to think of darshan, you know. Yes, darshan can be a specific experience. It's a religious person or a natural phenomena or murti. I think in the Hindu tradition, darshan is way of being also, it's a way of life. That momentary experience has to be then infused, has to become a total way of being. So darshan itself is a mode of being in the world. It may be a particular experience, but it finds its culmination in a way of being. So I might learn to respect I might have deep reverence for my guru, but unless I have reverence for every human being, I am on the way. And we're always on the way to darshan. That dimension we have to keep.
So Rambachan, I think that if there's a transmitter, there has to be the receptor also.
Yes.
So it's really our responsibility. If you really want
We
to
have
have
to
a
take
meaningful darshan,
responsibility,
to receive those vibrations.
Yeah, we have to be receptive. Yes.
I think it's a combination of the two.
I'll give it last word.
And we have, you know, we get 8-10 new yoga students every week, and then those that want to, they've usually never been in our building, I bring them upstairs, and I always ask the question, can you feel the vibration? Can you feel the energy? And I'd say about half can. And then this woman asked me last week, she says, what is that? No one actually ever asked me that before, and I said, it's God.
Kayena vacha